Okay, so today we're looking at leaking radiator valves. This particular video is about manual valves, so it's those that you close manually, and also lock shields, which are the ones that you don't turn at all, which are either covered with a blanking cap or the like. Now, quite often what you find, especially during the summer when the heating's off, is you find there's a little bit of a trickle of water coming down here. Especially when the heating's off, because it doesn't evaporate as quickly off the pipe, so you'll see it just come down, maybe a green or white mark coming down here, and then if you take the top off you'll see that there's water coming up around the gland here. Now, most radiator valves are the same. There's only two types that you can't do this for, but let's look at all the types there are. This type, you'll see the little gland nut here, which is what we're looking at working on. I'm just going to loosen that off so you can see the little gland nut here, a bit like you're working on a stopcock, same thing, but anyway. So there's that one, which is a lock shield like that, so you might see one of those. You might see a wheel head like this, which is the one you do up, you turn it on and off with, same kind of deal. There's the gland nut. Your inline fancy towel rail, same kind of idea, gland nut. Going back to your older stuff, here's a Pegler Belmont wheel head. No, sorry, this one isn't the wheel head end, this is the lock shield. Underneath the cap and the screw, you'll find that again, it's got a gland nut there. And the Pegler Belmont wheel head, again, pretty much it's the same deal. There you go, gland nut. So what we can do is we can work on all of those quite quickly and easily without any danger. Now, there's a couple of types you can't work on. One of them will look like this, except it won't have a nut. It'll have this bit of, it'll be thin and cheap, and this piece of metal here will be crimped over. So there'll be no nut, it'll just be crimped over. If you haven't got a nut, no go. The other type is some of the very fancy ones like this, which have actually got, they're built a bit like a tap. You'll see here it's got a little circlip and things like that, so you've got nothing to tighten down. No point in tightening that down. So you've got nothing to tighten down. Anyway, okay, so those are the types you can and can't work on. Now, the crucial thing when doing this is not to cause a problem to the system. It's quite easy, especially with valves like this, to tighten it up and end up just moving it across, and then you'll get a leak coming from here. So, first thing to do, get a firm grip of the valve while it's on the system, obviously, and then what you can do, such good fun doing this with the camera in the way, what you can do then, first of all, just give that a little bit of a nip, maybe a quarter of a turn. Obviously I've got this loose, just a quarter of a turn, just to see if you can stop it leaking. Now I'll show you what's happening in there. Basically all that gland nut does is it's squeezing down onto a little graphite or rubber seal. Excuse the bit of PTFE in there, you'll know what that's for in a minute. And that's all it's doing, is just squeezing that down to create the seal. You see the little thing there. So what you're doing is you're just squeezing that a bit more to see if you can stop the leak. Now if that doesn't work, what you can do, you can loosen this off, so grip it again. You can loosen it off, and you shouldn't get much more water out than you've already got. Don't turn this as you're doing it, just loosen this off and take the gland nut out. Now go carefully, because if you get a load more water, put it back in, but you won't usually. You can just loosen it off and remove it. What you need to do then is look about getting something extra in here to seal it. You can go with a bit of paste, you can go with some Loctite string, PTFE string, or even PTFE itself. What you do, get a bit of the string here, get a bit, just wrap it round there, wrap it round the shaft like that. Not too much, this is actually a bit much what I'm doing now, I wouldn't be able to tighten it down, but just get a bit around there, like that, and then use the gland itself to squeeze it down. And then what you can do is you can just tighten that down. As you can see, it's a bit much for what I'm doing there. You can just tighten that down, and that will then seal the little leak. Now, a couple of things to mention. As you're doing this, when you nip it up, if it's a wheel head, so it's the type where you actually need to be able to control it, when if you just first of all try nipping it, just nip it a bit. If it's stopped leaking, just check then to make sure that you've still got some movement in it, because if you haven't, that's no good to you. What you'll need to do then is undo it, put a bit of PTFE in, and do it down a little bit looser. Not loose, but looser. The other thing as well is if you put PTFE in here, once you've done that, check the action of the valve again, because what you don't want is you don't want it to be, you don't want it to be impossible to close and open. Now, leaks on the bottom here, on the nut on the bottom, so for example here where the pipe runs in, you'll sometimes get a little bit of a leak there. Now don't go undoing that with the system live, but what you can try is you can just try gripping it again, because remember, if you twist that valve in the body, you'll cause yourself problems. You can try just doing that and then just giving it a little bit of a tighten there, but make sure you've got a firm grip on that so then you don't end up twisting it. We'll look at thermostatic radiator valves in the next video. Hopefully that's helped. Yeah, cheers for now.